Okay, we are going to make a Photoword just as a review from class last week. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go and we're going to get our T tool, our type tool, and we are going to just pull from our cursor. I'm clicking and dragging kind of diagonally across from margin to margin. I do that because I want my text box to be within that area so that it's aligned already, and when I put in my type, I'm going to center the type within that box, which actually is also meaning it's also centered on the page because the margins are centered. So it's very simple to do that. So I'm just going to type in the word hello really quickly. I'm going to scrape across that word with my T tool. I'm going to pick a font. So I'm going to pick this font called Braggadoccio. You might not have it on your computer, but you want to pick a font that is chunky. It's got some heavy weight to the actual forms of the letter. You don't want anything really delicate or thin because you won't see the photograph that we're going to stick inside the letter forms. So I've got it selected. Now I could just go here and go to 72. That takes it to the biggest size here that from the drop-down menu. This is the point size of the font that you've picked. I want it to be a little bit bigger than that, so I'm going to select it and I'm going to go Command Shift period. And I'm clicking, 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 clicking. Every time I click the period button with the Command and Shift keys pressed, it makes the font go up point by point, enlarging the size. If you've gone too far, you can do the same thing, Command Shift comma, and comma decreases the size. So it's kind of like you're just toggling there. Now I'm not done yet. I want to center this type within its text box, and the easiest way to do that is to go to Command or Control Shift C, C for center. And it just centers it right within the box. So you can also hit it up here in these alignment boxes that you're seeing in the control panel. Okay, so if we click out, we can see that we've got a text box. It's got the word in there. The text box is nicely placed from margin to margin. Now remember, if you're not seeing the margins, hit the W key and you will be able to see them. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take our text and we are going to change the text from live type, meaning it's editable, it is type, to shapes, and actually think of them as image frame shapes, because we are going to convert all of this into outlines that think of them as an image frame. So the first thing we do, you've got it selected. You can select the box itself, the type box itself, with the black arrow tool. I'm going up to my very top menu, which isn't showing in the video, sadly, and I'm going from Type all the way at the top to Create Outlines. It's a drop-down menu, and when that happens, it is no longer Type. And if you now go to your white arrow tool, you can see, and you don't even have to do anything, all of the kind of the edges of those, what used to be letters are now shapes, have handles, just like an Illustrator. And they're just shapes now. They are editable shapes, no longer type. So the thing to remember when you get to this point is that once you've got this going on, you want to get rid of the fill. So if yours is looking like mine, it's showing, I'm going into the swatches menu, or I could go to the toolbar, or I could even go up here. But if you're in one of these, you want to make sure that the fill option is up at the top. So you can, meaning it's in front, not at the top, in front. So you can just click on those. There's a little double arrow, or you can just click on the X key and it flips it from the fill to being on the top to the stroke. And remember the other one right now, there is no stroke, but that's the stroke icon. We want to have the fill icon up. And then we actually want to change from what is a black fill to none. And the easiest way to do it is in the swatches panel. If you can't get to the swatches panel, remember all panels come from the top window, drop-down menu, and swatches comes from color, and it's another drop-down menu. Okay, we're going to switch this to none. Now, I'm going to zoom in again so you can see it a little bit. What we have here is bounding boxes of actual little tiny shapes, or almost they are frames themselves. And there's nothing in it. There's no color in there, and they're just kind of empty nothingness right now. But while they're selected, and I'm in the white arrow tool, so you need to be in your white arrow tool. You can see those little handles. You don't have to click on it. You just go to place. So Command or Control D. Up comes our place window. Mine went right to our Joe Malone prepped images. I'm just going to go to Fabric. Now again, when you're working on this, you're going to have your own organization and your own images that you're sticking in your Photoword. And you'll just have to navigate to the prepped image that you're putting in your Word, and you just say Open. And it just places itself right in there. Now remember, if you should probably be sizing whatever you're going to put in here. This is just a photograph of a swatch of fabric. It needs to be at least 5.5 inches wide, and probably, at least 2 or 3 inches tall, depending on how big your word is. So I could just leave it like this if I want. If I wanted to make it smaller, I could go up to my percentage scaling up at the top control bar. Let's say I wanted to make it 75%, just because maybe I want it to look a little bit tighter. And remember, you want it to fill out all of your areas. So you're going to move it with that white arrow tool. You're moving the brown bounding box until you like what you've got. You can move it around as much as you want, doesn't matter. And then when you like it, you click away and you're done. Now you can do a lot more fancy things, as we did in class. If you think that this is looking weird and you can't see it, maybe you want to put a drop shadow, or maybe you want to put a stroke on your word. So you can. Now what's cool about this is that all of these shapes that create the word are grouped together, so that whatever you do, it's going to apply to every single one of the shapes in the group. So for instance, if I want to put a stroke on, I'm going up to my control bar up at the top. I'm going to put a 0.75 stroke, and I could make it yellow. No, that's not very obvious. I could make it, oh, there's some Pantone colors. I can pick whatever color I've got. And, click away to see it. And of course, if you want to really see what it looks like, click your W key. That really gives you a better idea of what it looks like if it was to print. That doesn't look too bad. And if you want to do something super fancy, I'm going to walk you through a drop shadow option that you have really quickly. So while it's selected, you go up to your control bar up here. You're going to click on this little icon that says drop shadow. It's a square with a shadow underneath it. And it does that automatically. This is the way it defaults. Maybe you think that's cool and looks good, but actually almost everybody in the world knows that this is way too dark of a shadow. It's kind of too heavy. So you want to click back onto your bleh. You want to click back into your frame, and now you click on the FX. And then you click again where it says drop shadow. And up comes kind of a control panel. And the most important thing to do is just take that opacity, which is the opacity of the shadow itself, and bring it down around 30 or something like that. It always is going to print darker. And I know we're not printing in this class at the moment, but just a word of advice, always go down a little bit. And then if you want to play with the distance of your shadow, you can play with this. This is kind of a little rotation tool that it's telling you where do you want the light source to be and where does the shadow get cast. It's typical that it actually usually goes something like that, where it's kind of a standard that it always has a right and down shadow. You can change how big the shadow is, in other words, the distance from the letters, and you can even play with all kinds of things here. I'm not going to worry about it much. You guys can play with that and have a good time. If you want to, oh, also make sure you have your preview on so you can see what's going on. So this is what it looked like before we changed it. And then when you like what you've got, you hit OK, and you're done. And now you have made a keyword. Okay?